So Max, we don't cover mobile games that much.
No.
I know you're just kind of getting into what it means to chat here at GameTrailers. We're mostly console and PC focused, a little more console than PC. But they asked me if I wanted to interview Hironobu Sakaguchi at PAX, and I said yes.
Of course.
So I showed up and spoke to the great man for about an hour and found lots of inspiring things about Terra Battle, none the least of which was I might actually play this game. Yeah. And it definitely seems like a game that is for a Japanese audience. Yeah. The art style and everything seems to just cater to them.
It's a little weird because mobile gaming here, and even just like mobile technology and culture, is so behind Japan. Like, it's ridiculous. All those Asian countries, like, they have such a system that's like built into like every facet of their daily life, and games is one of them. And especially in Japan, they have like huge promotions for mobile games. And here we have like Angry Birds and Candy Crush, and they actually have like development teams that like have stories and characters, and they throw a lot of money behind it. So this is sort of one of those games that's, I guess it's weird because I think over there it might not be too big of a deal, but for them like announcing it to an American audience and trying to make it into this thing that that we would actually be interested in, I think is very progressive of them.
So this is Mistwalker. This is not Square. He's distanced himself from Final Fantasy. Although we do get Nobuo Uematsu, who's doing over 20, I think 22 or 24 new tracks just for this game. So it has some Final Fantasy pedigree to it. So what are you looking at the trailer and just kind of do you get a sense of the gameplay? It was a different type of game than I've ever played, but I was able to kind of pick it up. Not necessarily get good at it. I mean, I can take you through how it plays, but I don't know if you're like, oh, I get that style.
I kind of do, in a way, because it's almost like a fast-paced tactics game. I don't know how many moves you get. From what it seems from the trailer, you get like a movement bar.
And I think it's turn-based. It felt active time battle-y, where sometimes you get to go first, sometimes the opponent gets to go first. Maybe there's a random element to that. There's a vertical menu that has all the chapters. I think there's 25 chapters, and then within each chapter are 10 levels. And so you go linearly through the story. There's different music as you go by the screens and stuff. It had a really great aesthetic to it. But there's a grid on the battle system, and the enemies will randomly appear. And then if you take 2 of the people on your team, I think you'd have 6 people in your party total, 6 or 8. And then you move them to either side of one of these opponents on the grid, and then those 2 characters attack. And depending on where everyone else is in your party, those characters might also attack or heal or throw a magic or a bonus spell or something like that on top of it. So it was something that I kind of got, and then he would literally just put his finger down and move characters around, and then something amazing would happen. So what I did like about it is it seemed like something where you could, because I don't mind grinding in RPGs, especially in Japanese RPGs. So, because I just want to get big and beefy and powerful, and then just lay waste to everything.
Of it. Right. You have to have it.
So it's something where you can go, if you really want to focus, if you're like, okay, I have 10 minutes, I'm on the bus, and I really want to focus on what I'm doing, then I'm going to challenge one of the later levels. But if I'm in the middle of a meeting, or if I'm just like playing it for 5 seconds while I'm waiting for a food truck, then I will play one of the earlier chapters and just kind of like half think about it, maybe do something else while I'm playing. And if your characters are leveled up enough, you can do that. One interesting thing about it as far as movement goes is when you pick a person up, you have 4 seconds to drop them. And while you're doing that, if that character touches another character, depending on the direction you touch them, they swap. So if I am moving him this way and I touch a character, he moves 1 space to the right. If I'm moving the character to the left. And so he would actually move a bunch of his other party members just by moving 1 character around the board. So there is that kind of active element of almost seemed like kind of playing a musical instrument or like painting or something, just this kind of sweeping motion that he would do with the characters to line them all up in a specific direction that I didn't get good at all in the hour that I had to play the game.
I saw like one of the battles where they're fighting a huge enemy and they lined up. All of them lined up, and all these like graphics came up, and all of them like popped out, and they just started like wailing on this dude, and they were just in a straight line. So I'm assuming in the future maybe these characters are going to maybe incorporate that type of movement. But I think the important part was the fact that you said that there was a 4-second gap. Like, I think that creates like fast decision making type of gameplay that you just have to utilize and like think on your feet. Did you kind of get that feeling?
Yeah, definitely. And like good mobile games, it's based on touch and movement. It's something that you can feel just kind of like learning Guitar Hero or something. Your brain just kind of picks up those patterns, so you can do it really easily instead of like manually actually trying to do it like I was doing poorly the whole time, which wasn't stressful at all playing this game directly in front of Hironobu Sakaguchi. He actually put the last enemy down and was like, okay, go fight the last boss. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, man. What are you doing to me? Has a really interesting structure for how they're going to be releasing content. Did you notice that at all from the trailer?
It's like an award system. In a way, they've took all the really good things about Kickstarter and then made it so you don't really have to, donate money to get something. Maybe you get something, and the more you, I guess, spread it around, then you get, these unlocks, which I thought was a great idea, especially for a mobile game.
It's super interesting. I'm curious to see how it plays out, and it's not all just silly stuff where it's like, concept art, or like something that kind of caters to the experience you've already had. It's all new stuff. There's like 2 new songs that Uematsu, I guess, is like thinking about writing. I don't know. Maybe he's already written them. But it would be a shame if he wrote them and then never, maybe there's like a bonus LP or something.
Yeah, that would be really, really
released
sad.
down the road. But yeah, more. The game is very scalable in a smart way where you have your character and you can see a little avatar of them, a little square that you obviously fit into the grid, and the enemies are squares. Some of the enemies take up more squares than your characters. And then when everything attacks, then the gorgeous art comes flying in. So you can bring in other artists whose style might not fit the game, but again, if you're just throwing all these sprites at each other, all this character art at each other, all this 2D characters, then it can kind of work that way if you bring in like, this one guest artist came in and drew this crazy thing.
Actually, one of the guest artists actually draws a manga that I actually read. So when I saw that, I was like, oh man, I totally want to have his art. His art style is completely different. But the great thing about Japanese games, they have like that community of like artists that they just bring in other people, and it doesn't really matter. They just have like that initial concept, and that really does bring more like variety to a game, and especially a mobile game like this. They're not only adding gameplay elements with the characters that they bring, but they're also bringing in community, which for me, when not being a big like manga anime fan, that really does interest me. That makes me want to get this game more, and I think there's a lot more people that are into that here in America, and I think they see that. Hence, they're doing this system.
Well, it's interesting. The U.S. audiences have kind of done the backwards part, where like Ubisoft will say, if this trailer gets so many likes on Facebook, then we'll release the full version. Where this is on the back end, it's like you can get the game for free, and then if 100,000 people download it, then we'll release more of this content. So it's nice that not only is there incentive to play past it, you can see what that is, including the big 2 million mark, which is releasing it for consoles, releasing Terra Battle World. I think this is the first time we've actually said the name of the game, Terra Battle. So it's fun to see a goal and to know that it's something that that Mr. Walker will be investing in over the long term, that we do want them to be involved. You do feel involved. It isn't reason to tell your friends, like, hey, download this game because you'll be, 100,001, and that'll help us just, get further towards the goal of getting all this cool stuff.
It's nice because this kind of seems very like grassroots promotion instead of corporate marketing. They have to make a strict amount of money, and we have only this much budget, so then they try to create all these ridiculous things, while as this just sort of like incorporates I don't know, this wholesomeness to it, like they just want you to play the game, they just want you to download it, and we would love to add more stuff, but it's a business, so you have to get it for it to be popular, and I totally understand that, and I think this system is going to be something that we see more often in other smaller games, indie games, things like that.
Yeah, depending on how it goes, it's interesting for them to kind of lead the way. And I'm sure they're curious too. It's why they set it up. They're like, we'll see how interested you guys are in this game, and then we'll maybe have a 3 million goal and a 4 million goal down the road. And I think it was next year, if not the end of 2014. We'll get it next year, but it's free. You're gonna play it?
Oh, I'm definitely gonna play it.
Yeah. So we'll be back to chat about it then.